Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into a really tough situation unfolding across Delhi and the National Capital Region. It's something that's causing huge divides, even splitting communities and apparently WhatsApp groups. And at the center of it all, a recent Supreme Court order about stray dogs.
That's right. It's become incredibly polarizing.
So this deep dive, we're focusing entirely on that directive. We want to explore the arguments, the really strong feelings on both sides, from people worried about safety to the animal welfare advocates.
Absolutely. There's a lot to unpack.
Our mission here is to kind of sift through all the information we've gathered, court documents, news reports, expert takes, and pull out the key points. We'll look at the different views, maybe some surprising facts, what could happen next. Basically, give you a solid understanding of a complex issue with real impact.
Trying to make sense of the noise, essentially.
Exactly. Okay, so let's start. The Supreme Court issues this order, sends ripples everywhere. What actually brought us to this point? What was happening that led the court to step in so forcefully?
Well, the key thing here is the court took what's called suo motu cognizance. Basically, they initiated this themselves without anyone filing a specific case.
They just saw the situation and decided to act.
Precisely. They described it as extremely grim, even a public menace. Apparently, the problem had gotten so bad it was even impacting the court complex itself. There was even a circular about handling garbage to try and keep dogs away from their premises.
Wow, okay. And the numbers, the statistics, they really seem to back up this idea of a public safety crisis, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. The figures are quite stark. Sources mention that in 2023, India saw over 30 lakh, that's 3 million reported dog bites.
3 million in 1 year.
And it seems to have climbed even higher in 2024, over 37 lakh attacks reported.
And this isn't just a recent thing, right? I understand there's a history here.
That's right. If you look back, 2018 saw, I think, over 75 lakh attacks. There was a dip, during the COVID lockdowns, as you'd expect.
Less movement, fewer encounters.
Exactly. But the numbers started rising again. 2022 saw nearly 23 lakh. We're talking potentially over 10,000 people bitten every single day across India.
And Delhi specifically.
Delhi alone reported over 35,000 cases just in the first half of 2025. So it's a constant daily issue that was clearly building pressure.
And it goes beyond just bites, unfortunately. There's the risk of rabies.
Yes, and that's the tragic part. The sources mention rabies deaths 21 in 2022, rising to 50 in 2023, and then 54 in 2024. These are called perfectly preventable deaths.
Preventable. That's heartbreaking.
And public feeling has been really inflamed by specific tragedies, like the death of a 6-year-old girl from rabies after a stray dog bite. Stories like that, understandably, really fueled the calls for something drastic to be done.
Right. So given all that context, the Supreme Court came out with this directive on August 11th, 2025. What exactly did they order?
It was quite direct. They called for the immediate removal of all aggressive, diseased, and vulnerable stray dogs from public areas in Delhi NCR.
Immediate removal within a time frame.
Yes, within 8 weeks. With a particular focus on areas like Shadara and Pajanpura initially. And the key part is these dogs are to be caught, kept in pounds, and never released back into the streets.
Never released back. So permanent containment.
That's the instruction. And to facilitate this, the order mandates creating dog pounds to house at least 5,000 strays in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
5,000 capacity in just a couple of months. That sounds like a huge logistical challenge.
It is. And these shelters need full CCTV surveillance inside to prevent illegal release. The dogs are supposed to be sterilized and vaccinated, yes, but kept permanently confined.
And what else? Any other components to the order?
A dedicated helpline for reporting dog attacks was also required. And significantly, the court warned that locals who try to block officials from catching stray dogs could face contempt of court.
Wow. So they're really signaling they mean business. They want to, as the sources say, restore public confidence so people, especially kids, aren't afraid to walk outside.
Exactly. A very firm stance.
Okay, so a strong order aimed at public safety. And this, I imagine, is where the conflict really heats up.
Precisely. Because while victims and many members of the public welcomed this, the animal welfare community reacted very strongly against it.
Let's hear the side supporting the order first. What were their reactions?
Well, you had people directly affected sharing their stories, like callers to CNN News 18. One felt very lucky to have only a minor bite. Another mentioned his wife being bitten twice, needing those painful injections.
You also mentioned an MP weighing in.
Yes. Karti Chidambaram pointed out that this problem often hits the poorer sections of society, harder people who have to walk or use two-wheelers, making them more vulnerable.
And there was a survey showing broad support.
Right, that CNN News 18 poll found, what was it, 68% agreed with the court's ruling, and 62% felt stray dogs are a menace. So significant public backing there.
Okay. But then there's the fierce opposition. What form did that take?
Well, you had activists, maybe 40 or 50, protesting at India Gate, arguing removal just isn't the answer.
And things got tense.
Apparently so. Sources say several protesters were detained by Delhi police, which really highlights the sharp division. Animal welfare groups like PETA India called the order unscientific, ineffective, and misguided, warning it could lead to chaos, not safety.
So it's not just an emotional save the animals reaction. They have specific arguments against it. Like from activist Samukta Hunat.
Yes, her points, as reported, are that the court solution is completely inhumane, unscientific, and lacks compassion. She argues that trying to move potentially hundreds of thousands of dogs, maybe 6 lakh to 10 lakh, into shelters is counterproductive.
How so? Why would it make things worse?
Her argument is that confinement will make the dogs more aggressive and increase the spread of diseases within the shelters. Essentially, concentrating the problem might amplify it.
And practicality. Is that a concern too?
A huge one. Critics like Hunat call it impractical and unfeasible for a city like Delhi to just, chain away 10 lakh dogs somewhere. They also argue strongly that relocating dogs like this is completely illegal, according to ABC 2023, the existing animal birth control rules.
Ah, so there's the legal conflict too. We'll definitely need to dig into that later.
And they also point out that this order seems to ignore the sterilization and vaccination strategies the court itself supported previously.
Okay, so humane concerns, practical issues, potential legal conflicts. But you mentioned scientific arguments earlier. This sounds really interesting. What's the science critics are bringing up?
This is where it gets quite compelling, actually. They talk about the vacuum effect. It's a concept recognized even by the World Health Organization, the WHO.
The vacuum effect. What does that mean in this context?
Basically, when you remove animals from a territory, you create a void. Nature abhors a vacuum, right? So new animals are quickly drawn into that empty space.
Okay. And the problem with that is?
The problem is these new dogs moving in are often new, unvaccinated, and unsterilized. So they might be more prone to diseases like rabies and potentially more likely to bite, undoing any safety gains.
So removing dogs could inadvertently lead to more dangerous dogs moving in.
That's the fear. One expert, Dr. Tanaya, a human doctor, used a powerful analogy. She likened vaccinated street dogs to invisible guards against rabies. Removing them, she said, is like pulling out the fire brake during a forest fire. You remove the buffer.
That's a striking image. And are there wider ecological worries too?
Yes, quite significant ones mentioned in the sources. Apparently, dogs play a role as sort of apex predators in urban ecosystems.
Really? What do they prey on?
Primarily rodents. So removing large numbers of dogs could lead to a boom in rat populations. And rats, as we know, carry diseases like plague, leptospirosis, affecting potentially hundreds of millions in India.
Has this kind of thing happened before? Removing one species leading to problems with another?
The sources give some pretty dramatic historical examples. China's Four Pests campaign back in 1958, they targeted sparrows, killed masses of them, and ended up with devastating locust swarms because the sparrows weren't there to eat them. And even Paris in the 1880s. They apparently removed dogs and cats, and the city got overrun with rats. There's also a point made about dogs deterring monkeys from entering human areas, so removing dogs might increase monkey problems too.
Okay, so the scientific case against mass removal seems to revolve around this vacuum effect and potential ecological disruption. This leads naturally to the alternative strategy, doesn't it? Sterilization and vaccination.
Exactly. Commonly known as ABC animal birth control, or sometimes TNR, trap-neuter return. And this approach has significant backing.
Well,
Crucially, from the World Health Organization again, their 2018 stance is quite clear. They state that mass dog vaccination has repeatedly been shown to be effective for controlling rabies, while removal of dogs does not decrease dog density or control rabies in the long run.
so the WHO is explicitly against removal or culling for rabies control.
Yes, they say mass culling should therefore not be a part of a rabies control strategy. It is ineffective and may be counterproductive to vaccination programs.
Strong words. Are there examples where ABC-TNR has actually worked?
There are. A study in Jodhpur is cited showing significant drops in dog numbers where a high percentage, over 60%, up to nearly 90% in some areas, were sterilized and vaccinated.
And closer to home.
Goa's Mission Rabies campaign is highlighted as a major success. By vaccinating and sterilizing at least 70% of street dogs, they saw big drops in human rabies cases. Goa actually became the first Indian state to be declared a rabies-controlled area in 2021.
First in India. That's impressive. And what about Delhi itself, where this order applies?
This is perhaps the most pointed statistic critics raise. According to data from the Municipal Corporation of Delhi, the MCD, Delhi hasn't recorded a single human rabies death in the last 3 years.
No rabies deaths in 3 years.
So that's what the data apparently shows. And critics argue this fact really demolishes the court's emergency justification for mass removal. If rabies isn't an active crisis, why the drastic immediate removal order?
That's a very powerful point. Okay, so we have strong scientific backing and success stories for sterilization and vaccination. Let's pivot back to the Supreme Court's order. What about actually implementing it, the practical side?
Yeah, this is where things look incredibly difficult on the ground. The estimate is around 10 lakh, a million stray dogs in Delhi.
1 million dogs. And the shelter capacity.
That's the bottleneck. Sources say there are maybe only about 20 shelters currently, and their total capacity is fewer than 5,000 dogs.
5,000 capacity for 1 million dogs. That's not even close.
It's a massive gap, and the fear is obvious. Overcrowded pounds leading to disease, injury, and immense suffering for the animals crammed inside.
And the logistics for the MCD, the Municipal Corporation. Staffing, vehicles, land.
All major hurdles. Reports mention insufficient staff and vehicles for dog catch operations, major land constraints for building new shelters, and then the huge ongoing costs feeding medical care.
Has anyone put a price tag on this?
Maneka Gandhi, the former minister and activist, gave a rough estimate. Just building the pounds needed for her estimate of 3 lakh dogs, lower than others, could cost around Rs 15,000 crore.
15,000 crore.
Plus, she estimated another Rs 5 crore a week just for feeding them. Her question was stark. Does Delhi even have that kind of money?
It's an astronomical figure.
Yeah.
Okay, logistics, cost. What about the legal angle you touched on earlier? Does this order fit with existing Indian law?
This seems to be a major point of conflict. The sources state pretty clearly that the Supreme Court's order appears to be in flagrant violation of India's established laws, specifically the animal birth control, dogs, rules, the ABC rules from 2023.
So rules published just last year, what do they say?
They explicitly lay out a capture, sterilize, vaccinate, and return CSVR method. That's the legally mandated approach. They put the responsibility squarely on local authorities to manage the dog population this way.
Capture, sterilize, vaccinate, and return. Not remove permanently.
Exactly. The ABC rules explicitly prohibit the relocation or removal of sterilized and vaccinated dogs from their territories. They even require public notices before catching dogs, telling residents the animals will be returned to the same area after the procedure.
So the law mandates return, the court orders permanent removal. That's a direct contradiction, isn't it?
It certainly appears so. The rules even detail things like marking sterilized dogs with a V-notch in the ear, CCTV in the ABC centers, meticulous record keeping. It's a whole framework built around humane management and return.
It creates a real paradox, as one source put it. The court's job is usually seen as enforcing laws, making sure authorities follow the rules like the ABC ones.
Yeah.
But here, the order seems to override those rules.
Right, and critics argue it effectively punishes the animals for what they see as human administrative failure specifically, the MCD's documented struggles to properly implement the ABC programs in the first place. Things like using unrecognized agencies or poor record keeping.
So, the argument is the existing system wasn't working due to poor implementation, and now the solution is to bypass it entirely with a potentially illegal and impractical order.
That's the core of the criticism, yes. And it brings us back to that idea that knowledge needs to be applied. We have laws, we have scientifically backed methods, but are they being used effectively? It really pushes for critical thinking here.
Absolutely. So, given all this, the science, the law, the practical hurdles, what are the potential paths forward? What does a balanced, humane approach actually look like?
Well, the focus consistently comes back to properly implementing and intensifying those ABC programs, sterilization and vaccination. There are even ambitious proposals mentioned, like Each One Feed One, suggesting a rapid plan using mobile units.
All units.
Yeah, suggesting maybe 200 mobile units daily could potentially vaccinate all 10 lakh street dogs in Delhi within just 2 months. A massive push on vaccination and sterilization.
And what about adoption? Is that part of the mix?
Definitely. Both Karti Chidambaram and Maneka Gandhi emphasized adoption. Chidambaram's quote was quite direct. There can't be any dog without a collar roaming in the streets, aiming for responsible ownership.
And dealing with feeding, because that often causes friction in communities.
Right. The ABC rules from 2023 actually address this too under community animal feeding. They require resident welfare associations, RWAs, or apartment owner associations, AOAs, to work out designated feeding spots.
Designated spots.
Yep.
To avoid conflict.
Exactly. Spots that are mutually agreed upon and specifically located far from children play areas, entry and exit points, staircase basically, low traffic areas to minimize encounters, especially with kids and seniors. Even designated feeding times are suggested.
That sounds sensible, but community involvement itself can be tricky, can't it? Ensuring people feed responsibly, resolving disputes.
It absolutely can.
Yeah.
The ABC rules acknowledge this complexity, even calling for conflict resolution committees with various stakeholders involved. It's not simple. It requires ongoing effort and collaboration.
So we've really covered a lot of ground today. It's clear this is incredibly complex. You've got the genuine need for public safety clashing with deep concerns for animal welfare.
And all of that is layered over scientific debate, legal frameworks that seem contradictory at the moment, and these enormous practical challenges on the ground.
It really shows there are no easy answers here, does it?
Not at all. This deep dive just highlights how tangled the issue is.
So maybe the thought to leave everyone with is this. Considering everything we've discussed, the science, like the vacuum effect, the ecological angles, the existing laws that mandate humane methods like ABC, and the success stories from places like Goa, what is the truly sustainable and ethical way forward for cities like Delhi? How do you balance safety and compassion? What would a real, collaborative, evidence-based strategy look like, especially when emotions are running so incredibly high?